getting something that cares? 292. Okay. Yeah. And then the other way was the one that was withdrawn on James Street. Okay. All right. Both of those. Sorry. There isn't a 278.
No.
Oh,
Oh, the negative.
yeah. Okay. It's the negative. 281.
The property. Yeah, that's, we have an opposition.
279.
You have an opposition, 279.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get underway. Good afternoon and welcome to the August 12th, 2014 convening of the Baltimore City Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. A couple of housekeeping matters before we get started. First, if you have a cell phone, a pager, anything else that makes any sort of audible electronic sound, anything that chimes or beeps, thing with a ringtone, plays a melody, anything like that, we ask at a minimum that you turn that to a vibrate only, if not off position. Additionally, to the extent that you need to have a conversation with someone who's your neighbor or someone who's not close enough to be a neighbor, we ask that you please take that conversation out the double doors to your rear. And the reason for those two rules is simple. You'll note that there are a number of microphones arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive. They're not only for the purpose of amplification, but they're also for the purpose of recording these proceedings. Additionally, those of you who are in front of the wall can turn around and see that there are 3 video cameras mounted behind you, and up here there are 2 video cameras mounted behind the board. Those video cameras are recording these proceedings for broadcast on the city's public access channel. And pagers, cell phones, conversations, and the like going off or being conducted in the gallery interrupt not just the general conduct of these proceedings, but also the recording and the broadcast of these proceedings. We will be voting at the end of the day. You're certainly more than welcome to stick around and enjoy a civics lesson if you so choose, but if you got other things to do this afternoon, such as building an ark, that's quite understandable, and you can call into the zoning board office in the morning and find out how we ruled. The number for the zoning board office, I'll read this number off a couple of times, is 410-396-4301. That number again is 410-396-4301. You will, however, need to wait until you receive the formal written outcome of your case. That should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks. We certainly do ask that you not build in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining proper permits. If you've not already done so, if you're here in opposition to any case on our docket today, we ask that you please sign in on our sign-in sheet. This is being held up right now by Mr. Henry. The sign-in sheet allows us to not only to know generally which cases have opposition, but also allow us to know who needs to receive those aforementioned notices I just referred to. So if you're here in opposition, to any case, we need to know who you are, where to find you, so that we can send you the notice. If the case gets continued or is postponed, we need to let you know when the case goes forward. So please, if you're in opposition, sign in our sign-in sheet. The procedure when your case is called, if you're the appellant, you'll come up and you'll stand to my left or your right. The opposition, if any, will stand to my right or your left. Once everyone and all witnesses are up here, we will then get everyone sworn. And once we're done that, we'll give the appellant an opportunity to present their case. Tell us what the issues are, what it is they're proposing, and answer any questions from the board. Once they're done with their presentation, then it turns to the opposition, and they'll get their turn to present their side of things. And finally, we'll turn back to the appellant to respond to any points brought up by their opposition, answer any remaining questions from the board, and give a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth and unnecessarily keeping everyone here all night. We'll generally be calling cases in the order in which they appear on our docket once we dispense first with some preliminary issues. First, there are a handful of cases which are being postponed or withdrawn, and these cases will not be heard today. A couple of these I noted do have opposition, which is signed in, so please listen up to hear if your case has been postponed. First, 2014-285, 6317 through 19 Belair Road. That case has been postponed. 2014-286, 6321 through 25 Belair Road. That case as well has been postponed. 2014-291, 821 through 23 East Fort Avenue is postponed. 2014-293, 646 South Newkirk Street. That case is postponed. All these cases will be, it's likely will be heard at some subsequent time, but will not be heard today. If you're here in opposition to those cases, so long as you're signed in on the signing sheet, we'll let you know when that case is scheduled to be heard, but those cases will not be heard today. 2014-292, 1272 James Street, Young Kwan. That case has been withdrawn. That appeal will not be heard today because it's being withdrawn. It won't be heard subsequently either. If there's to be, there would have to be another case filed as to that property in order for that case to be heard, but it will not be heard today. The next group of cases are those which are on our consent docket. The consent docket consists of cases where the zoning board staff has previously reviewed these files and determined that there is sufficient information to approve these appeals. We'll call the consent cases together as a group, and if you hear your case called, the first person will come and line up here. Everyone else will line up behind them and so on down the dais. So listen up if you're on the consent docket. First case on the consent docket is 2014-277, 1510 and 1512 North Broadway, Nathaniel Green. The next case is 2014-282, the East Side
of North Calvert Street, 47 feet south of East Federal Street. 2014-284, 605 Park Avenue, Caroline Hecker. 2014-294, 412 East Patapsco Avenue, Salt LLC, care of Woodwan Abu Ruman. Next, 2014-295, 1708 through 10 Fleet Street, Lisa Junker. 2014-297, 208 South Pulaski Street, Verizon Wireless, care of Jack Andrews. And 2014-313, 2050 Rockrose Avenue, Idarinas Incorporated, care of Arthur Putzel. Okay, I think we've got everyone up here now. If all those giving testimony can raise your hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, calling the first case on the consent agenda, 2014-277, 1510 and 1512 North Broadway, Nathaniel Green.
Yes, sir.
Afternoon, Mr. Green. We have this as an application to consolidate lots and construct a one-story wide addition to a single-family attached dwelling. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. French, anything from the planning department as to this appeal?
Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Green, was there anything further you'd like to add to supplement the record?
Yes, sir. We have Ms. Ann Harrison from Oliver Community Association here today. She's vice president. The owner had previously talked with the president of the association and had agreed to meet with their board next month with some detailed drawings. And she's here today just to get some guarantees that we meet the obligations. So we're going to take a condition of approval that we get the $50.
Okay. David, do you have that? Yeah. Okay. All right. Then your consent approval will be granted condition, I guess, with that
On
one
this
condition.
meeting with them.
If you can let us know when the meeting has been conducted, either a confirmatory letter or something like that, so that way we can complete the file. That should be
Certainly will.
sufficient.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Zoning Board staff, having previously reviewed your application and determined there's sufficient information to approve your appeal. Calling the next case, 2014-282, east side of North Calvert Street, 47 feet south of East Federal Street, Stephen Levinson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Karsevsky with Venable LLP for the applicant.
Afternoon, Mr. Karseski.
Good afternoon.
We have, this is an application to construct a 4-story office building, 3 lower levels of garage parking, and 4 upper levels of office space. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And Mr. French, anything from the planning department?
Yes, thank you. The Planning Department has met with the applicant on several occasions and knows that this property, being a landlocked property, is going to require some special attention and considerations. Based upon those simple physical facts, the department recommends approval of this appeal, subject to site plan review committee approval and urban design and architectural review panel review of the development site plan and elevations, and the provision of a recorded permanent easement satisfactory to the site plan review committee connecting this property and its parking facilities to a public street. The applicant is already aware of these conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Karseski, is your plan amenable to those conditions stated by the planning department?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is.
Okay. And was there anything further you'd like to add to supplement the record?
Just, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, quickly, we did want to note that there are variances to go along with this conditional use. One is, and I believe they're noted in the planning department's comments, but one is for an FAR of 3.16 instead of 3. And then there are 3 setback variances. I just wanted to make sure they're on the site plan. One is for a 0-foot front yard setback, another is for a 3-foot interior side setback, and the most recent plan in the in the board's file indicates also a request for a 5-foot rear setback in lieu of 30.
Correct.
We also have a letter from the Community Association with additional conditions that they've met with the developer and they've agreed to a number of conditions. And a copy of a easement agreement concerning the access to the parking through the building in the front of the, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Tanner, I can let you know that, yes, you do have a copy of a private easement agreement that's in your file. It's been executed by the parties. It hasn't, of course, been recorded yet. That would be premature. With regard to the community association, the association is the New West Greenmount Community Association. Our group did have an opportunity to meet with their leadership on August 7th. There's been some exchange of dialogue and also written correspondence. There are 4 items that New West Greenmount brought to our attention. They're on page 1 of their letter of support. The understanding there is that we are somewhat early on in the process. Those items relate to signage, landscaping, things along those lines, and we have told the association that we will continue to work with them and have an open dialogue with them on their concerns, but that those are not conditions to approval, because we still have a road ahead of us to work through with them.
Okay. All right. Anything further?
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Zoning Board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Calling the next case, 2014-284, 605 Park Avenue, Caroline Hecker.
Good afternoon. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg Martin, on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined by Waleed Hodge, the developer of the property.
Afternoon to you both. Ms. Hecker, we have this as an application to house 23 dwelling units in the premises. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Mr. French for the planning department.
Thank you. Planning Department noted that this property is located in the Mount Vernon Historic District, and therefore any external alterations to the structure would require approval from the Commission for Historic and Architectural Preservation. The applicant has also met with planning staff concerning these matters. The Department of Planning has no objection to this appeal, provided that approval, if granted, be subject to the condition that the applicant obtain a notice to proceed from the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation for any improvements authorized by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Hecker, are those conditions stated by the planning department amenable to your client?
They are, and we're prepared to submit our application to CHAP this week, actually.
Okay. And was there anything further you'd like to add to some of the record?
I would just like to add this to supplement your record.
Thank you.
There are a series of rendered photographs in there showing the proposed development.
Okay. Anything further?
Not from us.
All right. Zoning Board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good luck to you both. Next case is 2014-294, 412 East Patapsco Avenue, Salt LLC, care of Ridwan Abu Ruman.
Yes, sir. My name is Mr. Corey Champagne, representing Mr. Rahman, who's in Jordan at this time.
Okay. Thank you for filling in his absence, Mr. Champagne.
No problem.
We have this as an application to retain and use a one-story snowball stand in the street corner side yard. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application.
And Mr. Champagne, was there anything further you'd like to add to the record?
No, sir.
Zoning Board staff, having previously reviewed the application, determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Next case, 2014-295, 1708 through 10 Fleet Street, Lisa Junker.
Hello.
Afternoon, Ms. Junker. We have this as an application to house 2 dwelling units, 1 efficiency unit, and a first-floor commercial space. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. French, anything from the planning department?
Planning Department noted that this property is located in the Fells Point Historic District, and therefore any alterations to the structure on the exterior require the approval of the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation. The Department of Planning recommends approval of this appeal, therefore, subject to the applicant receiving a notice to proceed from the Commission for Historical and Architectural Preservation for all exterior changes which may be required as a consequence of approval. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Junker, is your client amenable to the conditions stated by the planning department?
Yes.
All right. Was there anything further you'd like to add at this time?
No, thank you.
All right. Zoning Board staff, having previously reviewed the application, will determine there's sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next case is 2014-297, 208 South Pulaski Street, Verizon Wireless, care of Jack Andrews. Calling again, 2014-297, 208 South Pulaski Street, Verizon Wireless, care of Jack Andrews. Okay, thank you, Mr. Prince. All right, moving right along, 2014-313, 2050 Rock Rose Avenue. Itinerist, thank you very much. Incorporated, care of Arthur Putzel.
Good afternoon. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg Martin, on behalf of Itinerus. I'm joined by Mr. Putzel.
Afternoon to you both. Well, good afternoon to you again, Ms. Hecker.
Thank you, sir.
We have this as an application to use the premises as a community center, providing services to special needs clients to include daycare, training, life support skills, plus associates office space. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning board?
The planning department recommends approval of this application.
Thank you. And Ms. Hecker, anything further to supplement the record?
I would like to add this to supplement your record, please. There's a letter in there from the concerned citizens of Woodbury in support of the application, which includes 6 conditions which we are agreeable to.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Should be towards
I
the
see it
back.
right there. Okay. Anything further?
That's it.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, and determined there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Okay. Now we'll turn to the remainder of our docket. These will include cases for which opposition is signed in. Frequently, we found that opposition is the result of either a lack of communication or miscommunication between the parties, and it frequently can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue to try to see if they can resolve their differences and enter into an agreement. Obviously, if 2 parties approach the board on opposite sides of an issue and ask the board to resolve it, that's a exchange from which one of those parties is bound to walk away disappointed, and this is your opportunity to avoid that unhappy fate. When I call off the cases that have opposition that's signed in, just stand where you are. We'll ask if there's been any dialogue between the parties and if there's interest in continuing to have a dialogue. You certainly don't have to accept the opportunity to speak with the other side, but we certainly do welcome and encourage it. First case where we have opposition that's signed in is 2014-279, 2600 East Baltimore Street, Eugenia Kolkus. Signed in on that. Have you folks had an opportunity to speak? Okay. You guys want to talk right now? Okay. Just step outside and let us know when you're ready to proceed. And if you've got something worked out, we can put it on the record. All right. Next case is 2014-281, 1001 South Carey Street, Haider Ali. And who's signing in this? Okay. Has there been any discussion between the parties?
No, there's not, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay. Would you guys like to speak to one another, see if you can get something worked out?
No, thank you.
Okay. Have a seat. We'll call you in turn. Next case, 2014-289, 2622 Cairns Lane, AB Associates, care of Nate Predel. All right. And who is signed in on this? Hi. Have you had an opportunity to speak with the applicant, ma'am?
We haven't spoken.
Would you like an opportunity to speak with him? Okay, all right. Step outside and let us know when you're ready to proceed. 2014-290, 1300 North Caroline Street, David Bernard. Okay. 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 Have a seat, and we'll try to get you out of here as quickly as we can.
I think that's the case I signed up for opposition.
Caroline Street?
Caroline Street, 1300 North Caroline Street.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to speak? Would you like to speak with the applicant?
Yes.
Okay. I think they're willing to speak with you too. If you just want to step outside the double doors there, you can talk and see if you can get something worked out. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairperson, just to clarify the record,
Uh-huh.
both parties are in opposition to the relief requested for 1001 South Carey Street. I believe the appellant, I don't know if he's here today, but
Oh,
we're both in opposition. I think there was some confusion.
oh,
Okay.
okay. Okay.
Makes a difference.
Yeah. Yes, it does. All right. And then we've got a negative appeal, 2014-278, 3409 Harmony Court, David Addington, well, Gary Addington, and Ms. Junker. Okay. Mr. Addington, well, I guess technically the other side is the zoning administrator's office, but have you spoken with the property owner, see if you can get something worked out? Okay. And have you guys gotten anything resolved, or no? Okay, all right, we'll go forward with it. Okay, Ms. Junker.
I'm here on behalf of Benoist Israel, Baltimore, 2014-311.
Mhm.
The only one that's not consent, opposition, or postponed.
Uh-huh.
And I'm requesting a postponement because there are communications currently going on between Benoist Israel and Glenn.
Okay.
And
We-
I thought they would be here in opposition
Mhm.
or not, but in good faith, we'd like to postpone.
We did get a letter from them requesting a postponement because there had been dialogue and they want to continue those. So we were aware of that, and hopefully you get something worked out. It sounded like they just wanted some more information. When you're ready to proceed, just let us know.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. All right, let's call first 2014-281, 1001 South Carey Street, Haider Ali. Okay, calling again. 2014-281, 1001 South Carey Street, Haider Ali. Okay. Record reflect the applicant did not appear when the case was called. You folks are signed in opposition?
Yes.
Okay. You'll be notified, but as a no-show, it will be dismissed in the ordinary course. Did we get anything from, any communications at all from the applicant?
No.
All right.
Peter Huang, representing Polk Kwan, in opposition.
No.
Okay, we'll have to find out what's going on with this, but it's a no-show. So thank you all very much for coming. Thank you. Next case is 2014-290, 1300 North Caroline Street, David Bernard. No, you can- that's okay. Mr. Bernard? Yes, okay, we have this as an application to use the first floor of the premises as a grocery store, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. If all those giving testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Do we have staff reports?
Thank you. The Planning Department has no objection to this appeal, provided that the non-conforming use of the property has not been discontinued or abandoned. The application indicates this would in fact be a continuing non-conforming use. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. French. All right, Mr. Bernard, why don't you tell us, your name, ma'am?
My name is Claire Bailey. I'm the one who going to the community staffing meetings
Okay.
to talk with the community staff, Oliver, about putting a store there. I went to the meeting on July the 24th to ask the community as far as if their opinion, if they would like a store there. I even offered them, gave them a flyer of exactly what was going to put there, a grocery store / a deli. They told me that they had no problem with me being a store there as long as I came to the board meeting. The first board meeting was supposed to have been August the 6th, but there was no board meeting August the 6th, so she asked me if I can come to another board meeting, which is September the 3rd, and I have no problem with going to the board meeting and talking to the board or anything else about that. I am an Oliver Community Association also, in the community also.
Okay. And what's currently, there right now?
It was a grocery store there, but
Okay.
there's nothing there right now. The first use was, it was another use done in 2013. In 2013, the use was, it was an application put in, but they never fell through with it.
Okay.
So when I went back in April of 2014 to do a use, they told me I can do a use, but I had to get the, my lease and everything signed from the owner. When I went back in June, they told me I had to come there to the committee board, to the zoning board, because they had closed the use out. But it wasn't really closed because they were still doing work on the store. So the store has not been vacant, it has been used the whole time.
Okay. All right. Ma'am, can you take your name again for the record, please?
Ann, last name is Harrison, Harrison.
Okay. And Ms. Harrison, you're here on behalf of the Oliver Community Association, is that correct?
Board,
The
yes.
board?
Yes.
And I guess there's been an agreement from the applicant to meet with the board to further discuss the plans for the premises, is that correct?
This is what we're requesting, yes. And the board will meet September the 3rd, 6 p.m., 1400 East Oliver Street.
Okay. And you are, if I'm understanding what Ms. Bailey said correctly, you're not opposed to the application so long as the applicant follows through with conducting the meeting with the board, is that correct?
This is correct.
Okay. And, sir, your name, please?
Richard McCoy.
Richard McCoy. And how do you fit into everything here, Mr. McCoy?
I'm a resident of Oliver, and I oppose it.
Okay. Anything you can tell us about your opposition, reason for it, what your position is?
Because of problems there with the last convenience store that was there, parking issues. It's a church across the street. There's a liquor store on the opposite corner. And it's always a lot of traffic with the liquor store that's on the opposite corner.
Okay. Was there any further reason for your opposition?
No, just with the businesses that have been in that particular spot. It was an appliance store. It's been a bunch of various uses, and I don't see any benefit to the community.
Okay. Do you know if this applicant has been involved with any of those other prior uses?
No, I don't.
All right. And,
Yeah.
okay.
Like I said, I had went and asked the church across the street. I also asked Calvin Scruggs Funeral Home if they would like for a store to be there. They would prefer for us to put a grocery store there, for the church members to come out and go to a church, to a liquor store to go get a soda or something like that. They find that very disrespectful. So therefore, they're asking me to put a store there.
Okay.
As far as the parking with it, you have a church right there that has plenty of cars that's going to park. So as far as the parking, it's nothing I could do. It's not like I'm having people parking. It's just a grocery store on the corner. Whatever the liquor store has going on, I have nothing to do with that neither.
Okay. Any other further questions? Nope. All right. Thank you all very much.
2014-279, 2600 East Baltimore Street, Eugenia Kolkus. Okay, Ms. Kolkus? Okay, and sir, your name is? Okay. We have this as an application to construct a one-story attached rear one-car garage, including rooftop deck, accessed from second floor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If all those giving testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay. Before the hearing, you folks stepped out to have a discussion. Any fruitful
No,
results?
unfortunately. And we're neighbors, you know, we go on well. It's just, we're looking, we have a point of concern in Baltimore Street. The rear of our house, when we purchased it, was a parking pad that we used. And because of just problems with just an open pad like that, we had a bicycle that got sold and some other damage and stuff. So we were going to close it with simply a gate, but it's not deep enough for a car, which is completely gate. So the alternative was building a garage, and with the garage, that allows us to also build a deck where we could put some things that we currently have in the back space. Currently still a curb cut there. There was a garage on that property at one time in history.
Before we get too far down the track, just a moment. Do we have any staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. However, the Planning Department would like to alert the applicant to the fact that even though there is a curb cut present, the construction of the garage at a depth greater than 15 feet 4 inches, which is the width of the lot of record, is going to require approval from Baltimore City for an encroachment upon the public way. And that may cause you problems in terms of the size of your garage if you are not able to obtain that, because you will only have a 15-foot deep garage, which is not deep enough for the average vehicle to fit in. That's all.
Okay. Sir, you were saying?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We just brought some pictures. We're on Patterson Park, kind of between Patterson and I forget the shooting Fayette, but along that stretch, on every block, those first corner houses, almost every block there are houses with garages that have been built. I brought just pictures of some of them. This is our current property, and then across the street, going down the street, a number of them have the kind of deck that we're talking about building, just kind of an open rail deck. I'll just give that. One of the main reasons we want the garage, Gina is a physician at Franklin Square Hospital. She's an OBGYN. She's often getting in at 2 or 3 in the morning. Just because of that area and the lack of parking in it, if you get there past 9 o'clock in the evening, you're going to be parking 2 or 3 blocks away. When she gets in at 2 or 3 in the morning, she's parking 7 or 8 blocks away at best. So one of it is kind of a safety issue. We'd like to have the parking for her, but also just be able to store stuff in that area. There is a current curb cut there. The house, the way it currently is designed, has 2 bump outs. We do realize we have to apply for the bump out, and we have a builder and architect working on that, which would apply for that. But it's, you can see from the pictures, almost every block there already are houses there. We originally were using it as parking space, but we enclosed it simply to kind of protect the things that we were storing out there. The garage gives us both those capacities to store stuff and not have to worry about Gina being able to park when she's getting in late.
Okay. Anything further?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, your name is?
John Cook.
Okay. And Mr. Cook, what's the nature of your opposition?
could not make it to the hearing today.
Just a little bit closer.
Oops,
closer
yes.
microphone.
If I could, I'd like to present copies of a letter that I've written. There's enough for each of the board members, also with some pictures attached. And I'll just highlight some of the points in here rather than read it all. But basically, my wife and I are both opposed to the granting for permission for the one-story attached garage, including the rooftop deck. My wife and I purchased our house in 2009, and have spent many hours and money on the back of improving our house, backyard, and the yard walls. We believe that the building of the proposed garage and deck will negatively affect our quality of life and have a diminishing effect on the property or value.
Your house is on the opposite corner?
No, sir, we're directly adjacent property. If you look at the, pardon
Are
me,
you across the intersection or right
If-
there?
we are
Next
right
door.
next door.
There we go.
Yes, sir. Basically, our house faces south, faces Patterson Park. The rear of our house faces north. We don't get much sunlight as it is. We have one window in our kitchen. There's an overhang of a bay window that was constructed with the house when it was built in 1893. And our next-door neighbor has a bump out on their house of 5 feet that I believe is a pantry that also blocks some sunlight. So we only have one window in our kitchen plus the door, and our kitchen's rather dark. So we don't get all that much sunlight. With the building of the garage, the wall will be extended up another 6 feet, which will be 12 feet. In essence, it'll block the sunlight in the evening. In addition, their house has 40 windows, counting the front and the side and the back, not counting their basement windows, and our house has 13 with a skylight. So they get plenty of light in their house with all those windows where we don't get as much light, plus the air circulation that'll be blocked off. Basically, there's also a downspout in a little area adjacent to our back door that they won't have access to unless they come into our yard to access if they do build a garage. And while I understand that the parking situation in the city, we all face it. I'm 50 years old. I've lived in the city for 48 years in a row house with neighbors and dealt with all kinds of issues, as everyone that lives in the city has. However, we live across from Patterson Park, which is a large park. It's parking on both sides of the street. The opposite side of our street doesn't have any houses on it, so there's plenty of parking. I understand the getting home late at night. I was taking college classes, getting home 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and have to park almost over on the other side of Park near Eastern Avenue, near where the dog park is now. While we were out in the hallway, they brought up the fact that it's Mrs. Kolkis's safety, and I understand that, and it would be my safety as well. However, they feel that her safety is more important than my safety, even though I park in the same, I mean, somebody can beat me over the head the same as they can anybody else. When we purchased the house, there was a parking pad. If you look at the first page, or the second page, I'm sorry, let me see one more time here. If you look at the second page at the bottom, you can see the bottom left-hand side shows the advertisement for that house when it was sold with a parking pad. The picture next to it shows the enclosure that they built, which basically they use as a dog pen for their dogs who stay out most of the day. I understand that there are a few houses that do have garages. I have a picture, unfortunately, I didn't print out all these photos for each of you. Excuse me for a moment.
You want to make these part of the record?
Yes, sir.
This is a garage that's up on Milton Avenue. And this is the side of the garage, which you can see, the brick pattern is common bond, which is an older brick pattern that they used back in the early 1900s up through the 50s. That garage, along with most of the garages that they have presented to you in pictures, are existing conditions that were there, or part of them have been torn down and then they've renovated them. We just feel that the building of this garage is going to affect the cost of our, the property value of our house, the light in our backyard. If you look at the pictures, you can see that I have a before and after picture of when we purchased our house, which is on page 2. Our patio was concreted in. The boards on the left-hand side of the picture were all rotted. We replaced all those. We painted the walls. We took out the concrete pavers, removed the dead tree in the back. I mean, we've done a lot of work in our backyard and enjoy the space. And we just feel that this garage is not necessary. However, we are, willing to let them, extend their wall towards Luzerne and put in an enclosed parking pad. I understand the safety issue. We do live on a gated alley, and I think that would be more in kind with our gated alley to have an enclosed parking pad rather than a garage deck. And I'd also like, I don't know how much time you have to read what I've written. I've just summarized what was written there. But I also like to let that be part of the record.
All right. Any further?
Not that I can think of, sir.
All right, thank you. Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Kolkis, you guys have the last word.
Just a few things. I'm not sure where we want to concern about this issue is where we certainly would reject if they wanted to go to the garage either back there. The lighting that is blocking their house is the house behind all of us, which has nothing to do with what you can see in the picture, which is the house that is the next street down, which runs the opposite direction of our two houses. So that's where the lighting's blocked. We're not going up 12 feet, we're going just 2 feet above where our current door is. The deck area is going to be open, so it's not going to be, have any solid walls on it like a few of the pictures. There are, I believe, 12 or 13 garages in that stretch of 10 street corners. So about half of the houses along that stretch have garages. Several of them are brand new that have been built within the last year or two. I think one of them was built this year. I think one of them was built the year before, and there's some others. As far as improvements to the house, I mean, I don't think they would deny it. We've done a lot to improve the looks of that house in that area. There's nothing that I'm aware of that says that garages devalue surrounding houses. Again, the wall that we're putting in isn't going to be much higher than what the current wall is, where he added a higher wall with wood, which we think looks nice. We added to that, but they actually increased the height of that wall themselves when they lived there by putting the wood along that wall. We're simply enclosing it for safety, and one, to make more use of the property.
Okay. Any further questions?
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Two comments, please.
Okay, brief.
I know you want to go back and forth. For one, just the one comment that he brought up, this house that's directly behind us, this is on page 4. is on the north side. The sun doesn't go behind this house. The sun is east-west. That does not block our light at all. Because there is no sun. If anything, that reflects the sun, from the south side, reflects it into our backyard. The other item about my putting the boards on, this photo that I provided is from the real estate ad when we purchased the house. I did not make this any higher than it already was. I just simply replaced rotting boards.
You have one question. How do you plan to address the concerns of the planning department?
Well, we were going to apply for that. Our house currently has a bump out. The design of the house has two bump outs. The front of the house, the windows bump out. We're not going out any further than that space. When we originally looked at doing the parking, we were going to just enclose the parking pad originally. And we were told by the city that our only option was to build a garage. We couldn't just enclose the space. So we do have to, we were told we would have to pay like an annual fee for having that bump out. We currently have two bump outs for the house design already. As you can see from the drawing, there's a bump out bay window for our dining room, and then where the steps go down to our basement, and then there's a bump out at the front of the house. And the garage will not go out any further than those front spaces. That's what we were originally told when we first were in close that, is that we could get that approved, but we could do it only by having a garage rather than just having it enclosed. And we would have to pay an annual fee for that.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Calling 2014-289, 3622 Karen's Lane, AB Associates, care of Nate Predel. And Mr. Berry. Ma'am, your name is? Catherine, you said. Can you spell that last name for us?
Can you step up?
Okay. And Mr. Berry, we have this as an application to raise the existing warehouse structures, subdivide the existing lot into 30 lots, and construct 29 new 3-story single-family attached dwellings with decks and lower-level parking garages and 1 common area lot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Can you both raise your hands and be sworn, please?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're going to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Do we have staff reports?
Yes. I have a letter from the Hamden Community Council. They write that they have met with the developer on 2 occasions to discuss their concerns. While the developer has attempted to address these concerns, we appreciate their actions, but still feel that there's more due diligence needed to take place before the Community Council can provide support for these variances. The main concern is that the Community Council lacks neighbor input. We asked the developer to reach out to the affected neighbors. However, only one neighbor on one nearby street was contacted, and they only provided their input this morning. As of this morning, it is our understanding that they will be proceeding with the applicant will be proceeding with the hearing. Yet our concerns of this neighbor input has not been satisfied. They asked the zoning board to deny the request for the variances for this development. We also have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department notes that this proposal includes a subdivision. For that reason, it is going to require approval by both the Site Plan Review Committee and the Planning Commission. And therefore, the department recommends that approval, if granted, be subject to final approval of the proposed subdivision and structures by the Site Plan Review Committee and by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
We also received an email today from a group of neighbors that met with the developer last night, and they submitted a letter that Mr. Henry will read into the record.
At the request of the Hampton Community Council, the applicant of the above appeal met at my house, 12/3, 16 West 37th Street last night with the affected 37th Street neighbors. The meeting was to review the plans submitted to the board. The minor variances required for setback and lot area and discuss issues such as traffic and parking. My neighbors thought it was important to reach out to the BMZA before today's hearing to let you know that there is agreement among the residents of West 37th Street that we support the redevelopment of the subject underutilized commercial industrial property into new residential for sale dwelling units as presented. The developer has worked with my neighbors on design and traffic issues that will typically be addressed during the subsequent subdivision process required by the Planning Commission. We recommend approval of the appeal subject to final subdivision approval. Did Fanny read the report? Yeah.
Yeah. We're pretty much on the same wavelength.
Okay, good. Mr. Berry.
Okay, I'd like to point the board's attention to your file to look at both the site plan and the area photograph of the surrounding area. I'd like to just run you through the sort of the context of this development and how we got to this point and why I think at the end of the day, in the next few months, assuming the board would approve the variances, that we will reach the agreement of the Hampton Community Council as we've reached agreement with the neighbors on 37th Street. This is a commercial industrial warehouse, zone B22, zoned for 41 dwelling units by right. There could be an apartment building of 5 stories, there's no height limit in B2, of 40 or 41 units with the requisite 1 parking space. My client is not proposing that, but he is here because we have a contract, he has a contract to buy the property which will expire before your next zoning hearing. I know there was a request for a postponement, and I'm here today to sort of give the board the background of this and at least explain the contractual issues with a postponement and hope that we can convince you to approve the plans as we submitted them. If you, from the beginning, we reached out to the Hampton Community Council. As they said, there were 2 meetings. The initial meeting, they asked us to look at several issues. One issue was to, even though these houses are going to provide 2 parking spaces per unit, double what the zoning code requires, they asked us to look at a visitor parking because they were concerned that parking would be impacting neighborhood streets on 37th or Berry Street. Well, we did 2 things. We went and the plans that we resubmitted to you and them show for the houses being widened to 18 feet to accommodate 2-car side-by-side parking as opposed to the original plans, which had the whole first floor set up with what's called tandem parking. So somebody would have to back out, and they thought reasonably that might discourage people from using it, thereby affecting nearby streets. So we widened the houses to 16 feet, took some houses away. There were some iterations that went from 29 to 33, but we're back at 29 houses with 2-car side-by-side parking. We also redesigned the site in the middle, and there's some shaded areas that show a total of 10 visitor parking spaces that would be under the control of the homeowners association that are within the development that would be open for visitors as well. We also discovered last week that there are 7 parking spaces on Cairns Lane that would have the ability to be purchased by the developer, and those would be visitor spaces or neighborhood spaces. We mentioned to the neighbors last night, they apparently park there in the evening. It's owned by a public storage company on Falls Road that they don't use. And so if we bought them, we would just leave that open for both the neighborhood use and our own use for visitors. So those were plans that resulted in some changes. We also surveyed parking on immediate streets, both 37th Street, Conduit, and Berry Avenue. If you look at your aerial photograph, the site backs up to what is the rear of the Robert Poole School. The email from 37th Street neighbors actually point out that they would look forward to having more families going to this school, which is about to be renovated in the next year as part of the initial $1 billion school renovation program. This immediately backs up to it. We have counted in excess of 40 spaces in the evening along Berry Street, basically because one side of Berry Street is the rear of the school, which has its own parking lots, and there's only houses on one side. So I would testify, and we made all this information available to the Hamden Community Council last week, and we said, here's what we can do. Here's why we think the parking issue is less than you might think it is. They didn't have anybody on their committee that was that lived in that general area. So they said, reach out to the immediate neighbors. And so I contacted I think the block captain of 37th Street, who has a Facebook page, who sent you the letter. We had a dozen people meet he flyered the entire street. He had a dozen people meet with us last night, and the email speaks for itself. They support the redevelopment, and they would support the variances. I apologize that this was getting to the Hamden Community Council at the last minute. They just heard about this letter this morning, as I did. Issues that were discussed last night, in which you may hear from the lady who is here from Hamden, had to do with traffic impact and how was that be mitigated. And what I explained to the neighbors last night, we've explained to the community council, is that this is in an area that will require an independent traffic study paid for by the developer, but performed by a consultant that the city hires. We will not have any relationship with our own traffic consultant. That traffic consultant will study the intersection of Falls and 37th, Falls and 36th, Cairns and Falls and 36th. Whatever the neighborhood asks for it to be studied, they will study it for pedestrian activity as well as traffic signal at intersections. If there is a negative impact, the developer will be required to pay to mitigate those impacts. And that's been a program in the city now for 7 or 8 years. The nearby Rotunda had to go through that, spending $500,000 to mitigate traffic impacts just to deal with the Rotunda, much larger development, to be fair. That's the context that we're in today. I'm not trying to be argumentative with Hamden Community Council about a postponement or anyone else, but I do think that this is a project that will go through a subdivision with your approval of the variances, and I'll get to the arguments in favor of those in a minute. With your approval today, we would then begin, which we pledged to Hamden and the 37th Street neighbors, a subdivision process which would examine technically utilities. We would examine the actual design of the houses. I think we submitted some elevations. These houses are proposed to be basically around $300,000. They're not luxury houses by any means, but they're houses that we think would be affordable and within the market that Hamden deserves. For sale houses. We would go through that process and probably not receive planning commission, be in a position to even receive planning commission, site plan review committee, or planning commission approval before December. We did meet with the Merchants Association president as well. Have not heard any opposition from them. They wanted to have as much parking as possible, and once they heard it was at least 2 cars, at least he was happy with it, and they chose not to send you a letter, one way or the other. In terms of the standards for variances, We think that the property is an unusual property in the sense of a large commercial property that really intrudes into what is essentially a residential neighborhood. Historically, it's been a warehouse. It has been marginally used. The zoning would, as I said, would allow something that would not be necessarily in keeping with the neighborhood, and my client went out of his way to try and repeat the neighborhood pattern, which is shown in the adjacent zonings of R7. The setback variances that we're looking for, and lot area variances, primarily apply to the buildings on the north side of the property that back onto the 37th Street neighborhood that we met with last night, and they were not objecting to that, as you can read. There are certainly opportunities as part of that subdivision process to revise the plan and maybe move the houses even further away from 37th Street. We would probably still need some variances, and if we do those, we would come back if we need to. But I think as a practical matter, this is a reasonable attempt to continue the neighborhood pattern in Hampden. We think the property is unique. We think it's been designed in a way that the developer did not create the conditions under which stormwater management is required for this property. These houses are going to front on a pedestrian courtyard of 30 feet. And the pedestrian courtyard, which is 30, all the access will be off of an existing alley behind the houses on 37th Street. So there's an alley facing the alley, garages facing rear parking in that case. And then the other side will be faced with a new alley that will be adjacent to another warehouse that's just to the south of it. That remains, and it's not for sale. So we're trying to push everything far away, use existing access points of cairns and one alley, and then the new alley that we put in. And in the middle is a 30-foot pedestrian courtyard, which will be landscaped and will be used to meet stormwater management requirements, and also provide a sort of a nice area for people to come out their front door and sort of meet their neighbors. I think it meets the I would testify and proffer that the variances meet the standards at the board. We haven't caused hardship. We're building less than the number of units that's permitted. We're fitting in with the neighborhood pattern. And I'll answer any questions, and maybe, we had a chance to talk before the hearing, and I can address that if we need to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Venstrom?
Yes, Hamden's saturated with traffic. Balls and 36th are slowing down dramatically because of the amount of traffic that travels through there. We've got the Rotunda development, this proposed development. There's another development going on down at the vicinity of Hickory and 34th. The residents, a lot of us feel that we're just saturated, and that this is not going to help. And that's my only opposition. We did talk before the meeting, and I still wanted to go on the record with my opinion as a resident.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Berry, anything further?
As I said, we had a chance to talk. I explained the process by which the traffic mitigation will be looked at if we get to that point. I hope we do. And that we have pledged to HCC as well as the neighbors that process, which is at least a 4-month, could be longer process, that they will be fully engaged in that to deal with those issues that maybe Hamden thinks need to be further addressed. But we do have a contractual problem that we could lose the property. My client could lose the property because there's no board meeting before that contract runs out. It runs out the end of August. And to be postponed to September 9th would be a hardship in and of itself. We might lose the property altogether. We think it's a good project, and I would hope the board would consider these variances very minor and certainly within the purview of your authority.
All right. Thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
On 2013-330, 1522 through 24 Eastern Avenue, 1526 Eastern Avenue, 1528 through 30 Eastern Avenue, and 1532 Eastern Avenue. Fells Point One LLC, care of Van Cal. Or Fred Lauer. Afternoon, Mr.
Afternoon,
Lauer.
Mr. Chairman, members.
All right, Mr. Lauer, we have this as an application to consolidate lots and use as garage other than accessory for storage, repair, and servicing of motor vehicles, not over 1.5 ton capacity, not including body repair, painting, or engine rebuilding. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman, members.
Okay. If those giving testimony can raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, do we have staff reports?
Yes, first we have 9 letters from individual residents essentially who write, "It is my hope the zoning board will accept this and other letters and statements as a plea to help Douglas Place preserve some of our historic integrity and aid in urban living friendly expansions. There are several mechanic and body shops in our neighborhood which compromise would be available parking spots. To remove 2 to make space for a collision lot stresses the situation more." Another one writes, "We have already lost 3 spaces to the BB&T at Fleet and Dallas, along with spaces lost to the Scuta store at Eastern and Dallas. I think that's enough. In addition to the 5 spots I've referenced, we lost 8 spots on Fleet Street for MTA stops to allow for metered parking along the 1400 block of Fleet Street." The Douglas Place Neighborhood Association writes, "Over the last 20 years, Fells Point Collision, located at 419 South Caroline, has expanded their business, which now stretches from 401 South Caroline to 419 South Caroline. In the process, the entire length of the block has been removed for curb cuts and is used solely to accommodate those cars waiting for automobile body work. Residents and visitors can no longer park there. Eastern Avenue, a main linking Harbor East and Fells Point, and the surrounding alley streets have become rife with cars being loaded and unloaded, tow trucks driving against one-way traffic, and cars being shuffled from South Caroline to Eastern Avenue. Many residents have complained about the eyesore, the increased automobile repair activity around residential homes, and the environmental hazards. 3 Rose houses once stood on these empty lots, but they were illegally torn down in the mid-90s. These lots were never used commercially. Once the lots were raised, it became a junkyard for cars, boat trailers, Coke machines, and then eventually used as parking by Fells Point Collision. Douglas Place already is home to a large surface lot at the neighboring Citgo station. Adding another surface lot would only deface Eastern Avenue further and increase vehicular traffic. According to the executive director of the Baltimore Heritage, once a lot becomes a legal surface lot, it's very hard to undo. Finally, there are already ample auto repair shops within walking distance of 1522 and 1532 Eastern Avenue. We have received a letter from Councilman James Kraft indicating that he supports the association in this matter. And we have planning's report.
Thank you. Planning Department notes that these lots are vacant lots which adjoin the commercial garage at the corner referred to. This is within the Fells Point Historic District, so any alterations to the buildings do have to be reviewed by CHAP. However, that isn't actually what this application is requesting at this time. The department does note that the use of the vacant lots is for purposes of storage of vehicles for repair, and therefore recommends that approval of this appeal, if granted, be subject to these conditions, in addition to any conditions that the board may establish. There will be no parking, staging, or storing of vehicles on public rights-of-way. There will be no parking or storage of unlicensed vehicles on the property. All work must be performed indoors. All materials, parts, and equipment related to this use will be stored indoors. The area used for temporary storing of vehicles will be adequately screened by an opaque fence or wall, and if a dumpster is used to collect waste and trash related to the use, the dumpster will be placed either inside the existing building or within a masonry enclosure having a solid lockable wooden gate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. French. Mr. Lauer, is your client amenable to the conditions stated by the planning department?
Yes, they are, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a bit about what they're proposing here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Fred Lauer representing Fells Point LLC. Mr. Cow and Mr. Wisniewski are here. They're the owners of that. They have been in business, just to give you a little background, since 1985 at this location. They have another location, as was referenced, over on Caroline Street. Basically, they've been there almost 30 years. Prior to that, it's kind of a background here. About 20 years before that, my client would testify that there was an automobile repair. So we've had automobile repair shop on that location for probably about 50-plus years. This location, they've been doing, they're storing, repairing, and servicing motor vehicles. They do have the side lot where these properties were torn down a number of years ago. The request is to consolidate those and use this for parking. This is, of course, as the board knows, a B2 zoning district and a conditional use. I have a site plan with 2 pages I would pass to the board and ask to submit this in evidence as an exhibit, if you would, Mr. Chairman, please. And there are 2 pages on there. I'll give you a chance to, I got enough copies for the board, I believe. And Mr. Tanner. If you just take a look at the first page, if you might, it just shows in the center there the lots. Our architect put this together, and where they're all being consolidated and the addresses we have. And you can see, I saw that the board had photos, but these are kind of like, I think, better photos, kind of across the street. Looking Eastern Avenue towards Dallas Street. Dallas Street is the little one in the middle photo there that you can see. So the building is to your left. It's the white building. The lot already is screened in, fenced in with green screening. On the second page, if you will, basically what that shows is the existing building and a drawing of the accessory parking. And we believe that we have adequate space here for 8 spaces on that lot on the side. Inside the building, it's relatively small, as you can see from both the photographs and the drawing. They usually serve about 4 people at 4 vehicles, excuse me, at that location. So you can see the need for accessory parking here in conjunction with this. We believe, Mr. Chairman and members, that this meets the conditional use standards of Title 14 of the zoning code, particularly the required findings of 204 and the required considerations of 205. We have, as I said before, reviewed planning department's recommendations, and we've agreed to all of those. We did meet with the community. You'll notice that this is a 2013 case. We've had several meetings with the community about this, and I think we've addressed at least a couple of those concerns. One of the concerns they came to us with was us parking vehicles on the street, even temporarily. And if we have this accessory lot, we feel comfortable that we'll have enough space to get them off of the street, even temporarily. So that's number one. Second, our original plan, and someone mentioned about curb cuts, if the board will note in the objection, our original plan was to make a wider entrance there and basically take about 22 feet or so away from parking, community parking. So after we met with the community, one of the things we said, well, okay, can we do it kind of the way that we do it now and get a temporary ramp? And we worked that out. So at least those are 2 concerns that we kind of address. The other thing that is kind of strange to me is they say that this is the number of these in the neighborhood. Well, we've been there and had a history of this auto repair at this location for a long time and have been part of that community. And my clients provide a major service to people in that community for auto body work and painting and repairs, et cetera. We believe that this meets the criteria, as I said, and we'd ask the board to approve the consolidation of the lots
to approve the use of the building for auto repair and servicing. And I believe that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I'm looking at the aerial, and we've looked at the site plan that you've got. I guess I see from the aerial, the fenced-in area, and then in the drawing, I see the area where you've got indicated where there's an existing chain-link fence, and then there's a reference to a fence with a sliding gate, which I'm going to guess is this
It's
area.
right next to the building, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Okay. Is there a curb cut there currently?
Well, there really isn't, but I'll tell you how it works, Mr. Chairman. When my clients have an automobile dropped off, this is painting and auto body and insurance work, what they do is they angle it and put it in. So they slide the gate back. I've been there several times and walked around with the community too. And they kind of angle it in and then put it in that lot over there. So there's a curb cut over part of it, and we thought that, ideally we'd go all the way over. But the community objected to that, and so in terms of addressing their objections, we said, look, it works the way it does now, so let's just continue it the way they've been doing it for almost 30 years there. So there is a partial curb cut right in front of, if you will, if you can see on the photo here, maybe the middle photo of our site plan, you can see right there. So there's a curb cut there, and then it kind of angles over to that sliding gate. So the curb cut is basically kind of almost in front there, but to get to the gate, you have to angle it in, and they've seemed to be able to do this, and it works out for my
You mean
client.
drive across the sidewalk?
Well, partially across the sidewalk, yes. Mr. Wisniewski may have something to add, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Yeah, please.
The curb cut that's currently in front of the building is the full length of the building.
Come over here, you gotta come over here.
The curb cut that's there now is the extent of the whole side of the building. And it goes over about another 10 or 8 foot past the building. So actually, you just drive right up in there. I mean, they've been doing it, before we bought the building, the curb cut was there, it's always been there. I mean, so you're actually not driving on the sidewalk.
Okay.
If you look at the sign that says "Do not park," it sits back past the building,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
and the city installed
So there
that
is,
sign.
but Mr. Chairman, to represent accurately what's there is a little bit of an angle into there.
Okay.
And I think that's what you've seen,
Here,
yeah.
that there's no curb cut here.
Yeah.
Right, there's no curb cut on over, and that's what the community had the problem with, because parking is, as we all know, a problem down there. And we think this will help both our side of it and their side of it.
How far does the curb cut go? We've got the garage door here.
It goes all the way to the end of the white building,
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the sign sets back like about 8 foot or so
Beyond the curb cut.
beyond.
yeah.
So you're saying you're not going to interfere with on-street parking?
Not at all, Mr. Tanner, not at all. And that was a concern that the community rightfully had.
The application says no body and fender work or paint spraying. So this building doesn't do the body and fender?
That's correct, that's correct.
This is only for general auto repair?
General repairs, you go in with a repair and your fender's been hit or something,
Body work is done at the other location?
correct.
No painting.
No painting.
No painting.
All right.
And Mr. French, the planning department's satisfied with the current curb cut and the use of it to gain access in and out of the fenced-in area?
Well, the planning department actually doesn't really pass judgment on curb cuts, quite honestly. That would be the Department of Transportation's responsibility. But no, the planning department has no comment on the present situation.
All right. Anything further?
Let me spell
Mr.
your last
Wisniewski?
name. Let's maybe spell your last name, please. Yes, use the mic.
My name is Roy Wisniewski. It's ROY-WISNIEWSKI.
Good Italian boy.
Irish.
I'm sure that's what we said, didn't we?
My father went to school there.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. We'd ask the board's approval. Thank you.
2014-106, 446 El Rhino Street. Palomas Properties LLC, care of Mustomos Balomos.
That's my son. I'm Patricia Balomas.
Okay,
Easier to pronounce.
it is. All right, Ms. Balomas, we have this as an application to continue to house 2 dwelling units as a multiple family attached dwelling at the premises. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just caution you to be careful of the microphone that's right there with your
Okay.
papers. If you can raise your hand and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, do we have staff reports?
Thank you. The planning department noted the property is in an R7 zone, and there was a certificate of occupancy issued to a previous owner in 1964. However, basically, this property, in terms of conversion and meeting lot area in particular, would fail the test of an allowable conversion.
And therefore, on that basis, the department recommended disapproval of the appeal unless the applicant demonstrates that the two-family use of the property has not been discontinued or abandoned. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Balomas, I guess the issue, as the planning department crystallized it down to, or distilled it down to, is whether or not the property has continuously been used as a 2-unit dwelling. I understand that there was prior use of it as such, but I guess what our records show is that there was a vacant building notice that was issued in 2012. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. So why don't you tell us about what's been going on with the property, what use has been made of it, what use is being made of it, what's contemplated?
Well, when we purchased it, as Balomas Properties, with the understanding that it was 2 units. That's how the contract read. And then we settled around March of 2013, cleaned it up a little bit, and then my son moved in because him and I basically did most of the work, renovations, other than plumbers and all of that. So everyone in the neighborhood had told us that people were living there. They even described what was going on there, because we found a whole lot of things in there, including food still. So it was to my surprise that, they said it was vacant or abandoned or whatever it was. So when I was here last, I was asked to see if I can find some proof that there was people living there. I contacted BG&E. Unfortunately, I didn't keep the bills because they were coming when we started working in there, and I threw them away. So I had no clue who was living there. And BG&E said yes, there was usage, but they weren't able to give us any information on other people's names. The prior owners apparently were older and they were out of state, and we couldn't contact them because this was done online, the purchase. So I went to the people, I figured the people that would know best are the immediate neighbors next door, and I have a letter from both of them stating that people were living in there. And also the water department shows that there was ongoing usage of water. It wasn't just the minimum amount that they normally charge if there's no usage. I don't know what other evidence I could find.
So you bought it in
2013, March.
And was it vacant or was it occupied?
At that time, it was vacant in 2000, and that point. But like I said, when we went in there, there was still food in the refrigerators, both upstairs and downstairs, among other things. It took a lot of dumpsters to take stuff out.
Okay, so we've got a Letter here from Dr. Nicholas Chianos, dated April 25th, 2014. It says, it's addressed to you, Ms. Balomas. Says, Dear Ms. Balomas, this note addresses the occupancy of the subject property. My mother owns the house next door to your property at 448 El Reno Street. We would stay at her house while visiting her during the year of 2012. Note that we lived in Fairport, New York at that time and moved to Maryland in January 2013. To the best of our knowledge, the subject property was occupied for a portion of 2012. A woman and her child lived in the basement, first floor of the house. Sincerely, Nicholas Chianos. Second letter is dated April 26, 2012.
I think that was a
Yeah, I
mistake
think it
because
might
I
have
got
been
it
14.
after I came here at the last hearing. When I left, I got it after that, so he meant to put 2013.
14.
Yeah.
It says, to who this may concern, I own 444 El Reno Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. As far as I know, 446 was rented as a 2-unit townhome in 2012. I'm so happy who bought the house at 446 El Reno and completed a very nice job in restoring the property to an outstanding finish. This brought the neighborhood up. I welcome this type of neighbor that took it to the fullest to bring back the quality of living as I always have at 444 El Reno. Signed, John Gregory, is that Curtis?
Curtis.
444 El Reno Street. And we've handed up some water bills that show, I guess this is a period in 2000.
Somewhere in between, there's 2012.
Looks like in 2014 and 2013. You bought it in 2013, correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so we'll go back to just 2012. Shows no usage in June 2012. Or August, not October 2011 to January 2012. Then back before that, in the 2011, shows usage as of October 2011, and prior to that, back in the 2010.
Oh, the problem with water bill is just gonna show usage, but it's not gonna show if it's more than one family member.
That's correct. And what I was going to say is that I guess what the burden is at this point is, or what the issue is that the property currently, there is evidence that there was a vacant building notice that was issued saying that the property was not occupied, and to get it converted to 2 units, you have to show that it was actively maintained as a 2-unit property as opposed to a 1-unit. From the letter, it sounded like, and this is Mr. Chianos' or Dr. Chianos' letter, he says that there was a woman and her child who lived in the basement and first floor of the house. Doesn't say anything about the second floor, which would be the 2nd unit. So it looks as though that there is use as a 1-unit dwelling, but I'm not sure that there's been evidence of use as a 2-unit dwelling. And the letter from Mr. Curtis indicates that as far as he knew, it was rented as a 2-unit townhome in 2012. The issue being that we need to, is that we have to look back a year, so into 2013, to show that the property was being occupied as a 2-unit property.
the zoning board is a board of limited jurisdiction and limited power. That is, that we only have those powers conferred upon us by the mayor and city council. In this zoning district, what the law says is that in order to have a property, in order to move from a 1-unit to a 2-unit dwelling, including if there's been a 2-unit dwelling that's been, it may even be as constructed as 2 units. But if there's abandonment or the use of the 2nd unit has been discontinued, the zoning code requires requires the passage of an ordinance by the mayor and city council in order to restore that use to within that zone, and that's in the zone you're in is R7, so it's one of those zones. So I'm not sure that we've got evidence that there's been continuous use of both units of the property.
When we went in there, the units were separated, so if this lady lived on the first and basement, that was the 1 unit, and there were locks on that door, so they didn't communicate with the upstairs. So
But use means active use. So it has to be that there are 2 people or 2 families who are living in both. As I said, the letter from Dr. Chianos indicates that the use was confined to the 1st floor and basement as opposed to the 2nd floor. Mr. King?
It's a fine line between unoccupied and vacant. If 1 unit is occupied and the other one is unoccupied, that doesn't necessarily mean you lose the use unless you abandon it entirely. There's no evidence either way on that score. I do know that the real property file, which is this information here, shows it as 2 dwelling units, and it's been that way since prior to 1971. And in for 2013, it was registered under the rental registration program, which indicates to me that it wasn't abandoned. Just it may have been unoccupied, but it wasn't abandoned. There was a vacant building notice issued and then canceled and reissued when the ownership changed. And all that occurred between 2012 and 2013, so there's conflicting records here. I don't. I did some research and I checked the other properties in this block to see how many of them were shown to be 2 dwelling units. And the block is, there's like, in this group of homes, there's 15 properties. And it's pretty much split down the middle. 7 were showed to be single family, or like the corner property, they had some commercial use, like a doctor's office, I believe. And then 8 still showed to be 2 dwelling units. So the block itself is pretty much split down the middle between single family and multiple family. That's the extent of the information that I could find on the research.
No one in the neighborhood that I spoke to has any problems against this, because most of those homes, I understand most of the law is because of the parking issue, but most of those homes have parking pads in the back, including our own that fits 3 cars if you really want to push. So, you know, everyone was surprised that when we put the sign up that it says to continue the use, and they were surprised as to why it was taken away from us. I'm not asking for a new building to issue. We are just asking because this is how I bought it. This is how my contract read. This is how the agent sold it, and I bought it actually for my son and his fiance to move in, and they would rent the second unit for extra income. So then we're like, oh,
As an aside, we hear this all the time. When you buying property, you should verify the usage independently.
but I've never ran into something like this before. And you think when the agents are listing it, and the records show, and just like my renewal notice to register it this year, it came in as 2 units again, and it's never been interrupted as such.
Okay. Anything further? Questions?
Just wanted to keep what we had.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. (2014-280) 1610 Clarkson Street. Afternoon. Lucrative Investments LLC, care of Nick Lambropoulos. All right, you're Mr. Lambropoulos?
Correct.
All right, sir, we have, this is an application to construct a 2-story rear addition with second floor rear and rooftop decks. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, if you can raise your hand and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do you have staff reports?
Yes, we have a letter from the next door neighbor at 1612 indicating that this building has been worked on, that there have been alterations to the walls. Essentially, she's now getting water in her basement. She has an excess of 2 inches of dust on portions of her home. She also writes that right now she gets a nice breeze into through her back window, and that she doesn't need air conditioning. That if they come out with this property structurally, she's going to lose her air rights. She is worried about mold and mildew. She has called the building inspector to question some of this work. She feels as if she hasn't got an answer from the building inspector at this point in time. Does planning have a report?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lambropoulos, why don't you tell us what you have, what you're proposing here with the property, and also if you can address some of the points brought up in the letter.
Sure. What we're proposing on the property is to extend it out. I believe it's 10 feet, 10 feet on the second floor, and I believe it's 6 or 8 feet on the first floor, and and it's basically really just so we can add a 3rd bedroom to the property, or make it 2 bedrooms and a den on the second floor, just for resale value. With regard to the neighbor who wrote the letter, that house was actually her mother's house, and we bought the house from her. She has called, her and her husband have called building inspectors on us, I believe it's 3 times. We have yet to receive a citation or a fine for anything. And the last time the building inspector was out there, he said he was tired of coming out there. That's a quote from him. With regard to any dust in her basement, or dust in her house, or water in her basement, I periodically get phone calls from her husband. I offered to come over and look at it, and when I've gone to their house and knocked on the door, and I've offered to, if there's dust in there, we'd be more than happy to have someone come and clean it. I'll look at your basement. If we're responsible for it, we'll pay for it. I knocked on his door on 2 separate occasions. There was no one home. So I've tried to do it, and I'm getting inspectors called on me, and they've come out there. With regard, I think, to the back, there was an addition. I believe that the house that we bought is in the middle. The woman who wrote the letter, she said the one side, and another relative of hers is to the other side of the house. I believe at some point they must have put an addition, a screened-in porch on all 3 houses at the same time. When we pulled the permit for demolition, we took out that screened-in porch that they had in the back, which left their sides exposed. So we had that boarded up, and even put plastic on there and made sure that their roof was all taken care of. Put flashing on there so they didn't get any water in. I've done everything. I've had people out there on 3 separate occasions to make sure that they weren't getting any water into those additions. So I don't know what else to tell them. They're going to benefit. I mean, when the house is done, it's going to help their property value go up.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Sure.
Two 2014-283, 2125 Orleans Street. Atokpan Properties LLC, care of Sebastian Baldu.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Afternoon.
Members of the board, yes.
I'm sorry?
My name is Glenn James.
Mr. James?
Yes, and I'm representing Mr.
Mr. Baldu?
Yes.
Okay. And council, we have this as a application to continue to house 2 dwelling units at the premises. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, those giving testimony, raise their hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Do we have staff reports?
I have one report from home. Thank you. Planning Department noted this property is in the R8 zoning district, and it is currently vacant, and according to the application, was vacant for over 12 months at the time the application was filed. On that basis, because of the fact that the zoning code requires an ordinance to authorize conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multiple-family dwelling in the R8 district, the Department of Planning recommends disapproval of this appeal. And it is basically incumbent upon the applicant to show that the vacancy has not lasted for 12 consecutive months or longer, and therefore the property is not in a single-family status at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. James, much as the I guess a couple of cases prior, which you may have been in the gallery to witness, seems like we've got similar issue with this property. So if we can jump right to that point, and if you can address the issue of vacancy. I know at least just from our data sheet, it looks like there was a vacant building notice that was issued in August of 2010. And I think from what the planning department said, that there was a concession in the application that the property had been vacant for at least 12 months prior to filing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I come here to appeal to your good sense of judgment, simply because I believe that my clients have been dealt a grave injustice. Firstly, we are not asking this board to approve the conversion of a single-family dwelling to a multi-family dwelling. What we are asking is to keep our existing give us the as is. This property was a 2-unit property since 1961. My clients are investors, and they came out of New York City, and in good faith purchased this property. And if I may take you through our scenario, you will appreciate why we are trying to get a variance on this particular application. We purchased and closed on this property on the 25th of February 2014. We were completely unaware of any encumbrances. As a matter of fact, we approached the title company, and they told us that they were able to register the deed. And if there were encumbrances, they would not have been able to do so. So we started off in good faith, believing that everything was in order. On 7/25/2013, we got a code violation notice and an order at 1006648, in which we were asked to secure all accessible openings, remove trash and debris, etc. Rehabilitate or raise the building, and obtain an occupancy permit. I have this as exhibit number 1, which I will share with the board. We did all those. We removed the trash, tons of it. We subsequently applied for the use of occupancy permit. As a matter of fact, on the 30th of July 2013, we applied for the use and occupancy permit, and we were informed that there was no record of the property on file, and we were advised to submit drawings according to the department's stipulations and guidelines. My clients went ahead and paid to have such drawings. That was done. On 8/23, after numerous modifications to our drawings, it was, we received finally the permit to go ahead and execute construction. This was done on 8/29/2013. The permit department issued us the use and occupancy permit to proceed with work and to call in the inspector at the end of it. We went ahead, my clients and I, in good faith again, and expended their money, purchased the properties, the material, and executed the work on the building in accordance with our permit. Strange enough, on the 11th or 23rd, 2013, we discovered some structural work, and we applied for another permit, and it was granted us to fix some unexpected rotten floor joists. We have that again as exhibit for you. Now, the problem emerged on the 5th, the 14th of the 5th month, 2014, when we applied for an extension of our permit because the work was nearing completion, but we needed some more time. When we applied for that permit, we were then told that the building itself has not been approved for a 2-unit. It is a single-family unit. So therein lies our problem. To further complicate it, on the 21st of May 2014, we received a show cause order to attend a show cause order, a show cause, yes, hearing. Yes, so that the property will not be placed under a vacant builder receiver. On 6/23, we requested, once we got that hearing and we realized that we could not make it, we decided to come in and check what was going on, and we started to contact the agencies involved. And we all subsequently wrote to the attorney, and he gave us a postponement of that pending some favorable consideration by this board. So, to have this hearing, which we have today on the 23rd of the 6th month, we requested our hearing to see if we can obtain a variance to the building code, so to maintain this as a 2-unit. We have done all the work, and as our expert will show, right now from our pictures, everything is in place for 2-unit. We have the separate entrances, we have separate water meters, we have the separate electricity, separate water heaters. Everything is in place for a 2-unit.
What's up with the microphone?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
I also have, oh, sorry. I also have here, as part of my exhibits to you, the letter we sent to the zone administrator, Mr. Jeffrey Veal, to discuss this matter, because his department issued us the permit, and we worked on the basis of that. And we figured if there was a problem, at that point in time, they should have notified us of it, so that we would not have incurred all the expenses we have at this point in time. When we spoke with Mr. V, he said we should go to the executive director. And that was very informative, because at that point we found out that the previous owner had requested for this hearing, but he never showed. So since it was still open, if you wish, he said we should apply to see if the board will give favorable consideration to our cause at this point in time. As I see it, and I don't know if you will agree with me, we operated in good faith. There was error on the part of the city in terms of putting the cart before the horse. They went ahead and gave us all this permit, allow us to expend this money. Now, if we have to convert that property from a 2-unit to a single unit, it's going to be a double cost. And I think totally unfair and almost a double jeopardy on the part of my clients. And I feel that because the city erred in the first instance, it has an obligation, a moral obligation, to address this problem and to give us a variation so that we can complete the work. It's almost done. All we need to do is that finishing touch, and we are going to bring a property from value to vacant, enhance the community, and contribute to, if you wish, the rental situation, help out in the housing situation. We went to the community group meeting. We spoke to the community organizers. They are in favor, as I said, since my clients took over the property, the debris and all those things that used to be there are no longer there, because they're responsible and they want to add value to the community. And all we want is that opportunity to do so. We have already gone the route. We have already made the expenditure, and what we need now is this committee to say, all right, we're going to do a variation. We're not changing anything, but we're just going to allow you to continue. They keep the property as 2-unit, and within a short period of time, less than 3 months, I'm sure we will have that property ready for the market again. And this is why I'm appealing to you, to just give some consideration to what has happened and the comedy of errors that occurred, and not hold us responsible and hold this against us so that we could now proceed. I rest my case to you.
David, what do we have in file as far as property history, permitting history, anything like that?
We have a previous appeal, like you mentioned, from the previous owner that was filed in 2012 to continue to use for 2 dwelling units. And at that time, the records show 2 dwelling units, but that the building, a vacant house notice had been issued in 2010. That appeal, as mentioned, was scheduled for January 22nd, 2013, and the appellant failed to appear, and we dismissed the case. Then this gentleman ran into his predicament and contacted my office and asked if we could reinstitute that appeal and have it continued and brought before the board, and I said no, it had already been dismissed, and he would have to refile. So that's how he ended up with the new appeal for today.
Sir, did you say that you had the permits that were, the work permits that were issued?
Yes, I have copies of that right here.
And as far as I can tell, I concur with everything he testified to.
Yes.
He did get permits to do work.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
But-
I have, in fact, I should give you all the exhibits and orders I have them. So it will show that we have done everything that we were required to do legally.
These permits were, the permit was issued and it says work only, no use at this time, non-structural alterations, interior work. In other words, they allowed him to do all this work, but they didn't grant the use, which to me is not fair. They shouldn't allow work to be done if the use is in question.
Right.
But that's what occurred. And then when they filed for the continued use, the original applicant, so it is confusing. The whole in my view, it shouldn't have occurred the way it did.
You said you had meters in the property?
Yes. We have the pictures all there, the meters, the water tank, everything.
You have 2 electric meters,
Yes,
2 gas meters?
yes. Everything is in place. So that's why we were shocked at this point in time that we have to go through this process, because we thought that we were acting in good faith and that the city knew what it was doing.
Well, in looking at the permit, doesn't identify that work is being done for 2 dwelling units. It talks about how there's non-structural work that's going on. Just to look back at it.
But you need to look at the drawings, because those are it
Well,
was
I was
based on the
just
drawings.
a moment,
Mhm.
just a moment.
Sorry
sir.
for that.
It says non-structural alterations, interior work, 2,140 square feet, exterior work, replace entrance doors, same size, location, and remove board, remove drywall and debris, tile floorings, prep and paint, framing using 2x4, and 16 Asper code sketch. And what I was going to ask you for was what was submitted in support of the, for the permit application. Do you have drawings or?
Yes, right there.
Well, these look like photographs of the property.
Yeah, drawings. Go ahead.
This?
I can give what exhibit.
There's only one person talking.
Oh, sorry.
But which, I haven't seen any drawings yet.
Okay. It will be.
This is the vacant building case that was filed. This is just the permits. Sure.
Right, that's it. Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
This was, looks like this was the same as what you submitted here. Was this what was submitted for the work work permit?
Yes, that's what they requested of us.
The drawings were stamped in by Plans Examining August 23rd, 2013, and it references permit 17933. So they accepted the drawings, but they cautioned, when they issued the permit, they said it was for the work only. At least that's what I get out of all this.
Make sure I've got these in order. And I see your letter to Mr. Veal in April. Was there any reply?
Yes, Mr. Veal met with me and advised that I go and talk with the executive director, or write a similar letter to the executive director, which I did.
And then what happened with that?
Well, when I wrote that letter to the executive director, we were told that we still have to go through the process of filing the forms, the necessary form to have the hearing, which we did.
Mr. Veal was hoping that I would allow him to
That's correct.
go on the previous appeal and just reinstitute that appeal to the board so it wouldn't, so the applicant wouldn't have to refile and start over again from scratch. And I said I didn't think that would be proper. And we made him file the new appeal. Because it was a separate applicant entirely. And the first one had already been dismissed.
Was there anything further, sir?
Yes, from Mr.
Well, sir,
Rio.
except again for appeal, our basic appeal. I trust that you understand the situation we have found ourselves in through no fault of our own. And we feel that we should not be penalized any further and allowed to proceed with our work and put some value to this property to
Who did you-
recover our investment.
When you, well, who did you purchase the property from? Was it like
Skyline.
from who?
The Skyline, the previous owner.
Okay. You purchased it from the previous owner?
Yes.
And what, if anything, did they represent had gone on with the property or what the condition was?
All this, well, our title company is the one that we interfaced with. And the title company said that as far as they are concerned, that the property was free from encumbrances.
Well,
and they give us a...
That's a different issue.
It's not a housing violation. A housing violation is not an encumbrance on the property.
Title. no.
Okay.
And you didn't have any direct dealings with the owner?
No, we dealt with his agent.
Because it seems as though they may have concealed something from you. All right. Any other questions?
Just want
Is
to
this your name
add
for the
something
record,
for the
sir?
record, sir.
Your name?
My name is Sebastian Baldum, one of the owners of the property. The reason that it took us a little longer to work in the house is because in the meantime we bought that property, we were working in another property that we have.
And when
So-
did you purchase it?
When?
When? Yeah.
This property, we bought it in, I guess, March 2013.
Okay, March 2013.
So that's why, I guess, the previous owner, because we were in the process of buying the property, that's why he failed to show, because the hearing was very close to the closing when we bought the property. And so that's why, and when we bought the property, like I said before, we were working in another property to restore it. So that's why it took us a little longer to start working on it. Otherwise, we didn't even notice that the property went to the vacancy notice.
Okay.
Sir,
Thank you
do
very
you want us to make these documents part of the record?
Yes, please. Yes, please. And we can give you the censorship, this also, that shows that the property has been in operation since 20 years.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure. We are going to take a brief recess, 5 minutes. We'll reconvene at, I guess the clock is, so I guess 5:53. We're off the record.
Think it's time for a change. You may get disgusted, start thinking that I'm strange.
Of a two-story row house, so we're adding 3 stories to the existing footprint or building outline. There's no projection past the existing building outline such that we're dealing with a lot coverage or rear yard setback, and the 3rd floor addition is below 35 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So, Mr. Addington, what's the nature of your objection?
I'm here on behalf of my neighbor, Karen Weiss. She lives directly behind the property next to me.
Are you on behalf of your neighbor,
She
or are
couldn't
you
make it. I
here
sent
on
a-
behalf of
myself
your neighbor and
myself,
yourself?
pardon me. She sent an email this morning. Did you?
Yes, we received that. We
A
did
statement?
Communicate with her, but she requested a postponement and,
It was an emergency at work, but she did make a statement. I don't know if you have that statement.
yes, we do.
Email and
Is that good? Anyway, it says, "To whom it may concern," this is from Karen Weiss, owner 912 South Baylor Street. My apologies for being unable to attend today's hearing. A work emergency has kept me from attending, and Gary Addington is representing my interests and concerns. There are multiple problems I have with the addition that has been constructed behind my home at 3409 Harmony Court. Since I was unable to attend today's hearing, I sent this letter to Mr. Addington so he can represent my concerns. It was my belief, as well as my adjoining neighbors, that third-floor construction had been banned at Mrs. Heino's property. She was aware of the collapsed construction that occurred in 2005 at 3409 Harmony Court, and how a hearing ruled in the neighbor's favor, banning the construction of any third-floor addition. The neighbors who attended at that time were the owners of 910, 918 South Baylor Street. To my knowledge, a notice was never displayed notifying neighbors of the building plans for the construction that began in June. Ruling allowed the existing owner to build a rooftop access for a deck, but no structure. Please note there's 36 inches 36 inches alley separating 3409 Harmony Court from our property line. Our homes are very close. The concerns from 2005-06 still stand. Such construction on a house residing on an alley street would severely hinder the light and airflow to the neighboring homes. Ms. Heinold has stated over the years that she wanted to a small doghouse and rooftop deck. We were all shocked once construction started and we had not seen the zoning sign posted. Saw a 12 by 18 structure erected, and that a permit had not even been pulled for the construction of a partial third floor addition until after work had started. We requested this hearing in early June with the hope that we could have a review before the building continued. We were both baffled that this could happen after the previous hearing, and considering the appearance that the standard rules had not been adhered to, it appears obvious that the method that this construction was approached was to avoid notifying neighbors, and that the building would be complete before anyone could do anything about it. Thank you for taking the time today to review our grievance.
Okay. It seems as though that there might be some misunderstandings that are apparent from Ms., is it Weiss?
Yes.
From her letter. As I understand it, she stated her belief that that because there was a prior application concerning this property seeking a third-story addition, that because there was a negative outcome in that appeal, that applied thenceforth forever throughout time. That's incorrect. It meant that that applicant couldn't proceed on that plan for a year. But that was that plan, and that was then, as I understand it, the dimensions and characteristics of the current addition are different from that in 2006.
when you've got a third-story addition that doesn't extend out past the existing building outline, there's not really a zoning issue unless until you get to an issue over height, where there's a 35-foot height restriction. But as I understand it, this addition is below that threshold, and it's within the building outline. So it would seem that this is a request to, or that this addition, well, rather the permit to build the addition was pursued as of right. Unless certainly you can make me aware of something different.
Well, I mean, the board actually denied the use or the permit for the third story based on.
This is in 2006?
2006, correct. Based on the blocking of light and air to adjacent neighbors. I mean, we understand that the current.
Those standards are relevant where a variance is sought.
Right.
But here, there's no variance that's being sought. Or that, and I would also point out that there's some suspicion that was cast in the letter about lack of notice to neighbors, and that possibly this was done to try to keep people in the dark until construction was done. When construction is done pursuant to right, there's no pre-notice requirement. I think there might be, Martin, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, for third-story additions, there might be planning guidelines where people seeking building permits are encouraged to consult with neighbors. I'm not sure if that's a requirement of the planning department or not.
There is a requirement for, sorry, Martin, I don't mean to interrupt, but under the ordinance 09-230, which established a procedure for non-complying row house expansions that did not require a need for variances. There is a requirement that, I'm sorry, bear with me 1 second. A copy of the application has been given to the immediately adjoining property owners. And I think that occurred.
Yes.
But
This isn't
because
an adjoining
this
property
was,
owner.
there's a 3-foot alley.
We are adjacent neighbors,
that's-
actually.
Because of the 3-foot alley.
Ma'am, you're not,
Yeah.
ma'am, if you could look at me, please. Okay, we need to maintain some order. You're not testifying right now. I think you said that you were here to witness the proceedings, so we can't speak out of turn. Please control yourself. Thank you. But as I understand it, Mr. Addington, at least from Ms. Weiss's letter, she said that she lives to the rear. She's on the other side of the alley.
Correct.
So then not directly adjacent.
But
Directly adjacent.
it's kind of an anomaly. It's an alley street that sits behind 4 different streets. So we are actually the adjacent neighbors to this N unit, which is 32-inch, there's a 32-inch alley between her house and our backyards. So we actually were considered, in the hearing in 2006, adjacent neighbors. All 5 of us. There's 5 homes that actually sit behind her. So we were under the assumption that we were still adjacent neighbors. We never received any notice, nor was a posting put up.
There was no posting required.
Well, we don't know the requirements for that, but yeah, I was
But
just.
substantively, what's your objection to the issuance of the permit?
We don't have a problem with, the rules and regulations of zoning, but in 2006, the fact that it was ruled that natural sunlight was blocked and air to the adjacent neighbors, us, and it was injurious to us, we don't feel as if that has changed any.
Okay, recall that I said that those are factors that are required to be considered where a variance is being sought. There's no variance. To my understanding, there is no variance that was sought or necessary here for this addition.
Okay, I mean, they,
So then the portion of the prior ruling
Mhm.
from 8 years ago, that part's irrelevant to this permit application and this issue. And again, unless you're going to indicate somewhere where there's a variance request that was, a variance that was requested, or there was a variance that was necessary for the issuance of the permit, we don't get to those kind of factors. One other thing that I think hasn't quite come out in the staff reports is that, as I understand it, I wasn't on the board at the time, and I don't think anyone currently on the board was, although Mr. Tanner may have been around, that the procedures for third-story additions in 2006 was different than it currently is. There were subsequent changes that streamlined that process and changed it from what formerly had been required to what's required currently. With this addition, again, as I understand it, the addition is within the existing building outline. It's below 35 feet. So I don't see where there's a variance that would be necessary for that kind of an addition. And at that point, if there's not a variance that's necessary, not changing the use, there's nothing that would have triggered, from the zoning administrator's office perspective, there's nothing that would have triggered the necessity for the board's interaction under that request.
Right.
Again, unless I'm missing a detail. I haven't seen what the drawings were or what the permit approval was.
Variance is requested in 2000, there were 2 appeals in 2006. 8806 was the first one, and that was for 2-story rear addition and 3rd floor addition with rear and rooftop decks. And the variances that they sought at that time were lot coverage and rear yard. It had nothing to do with the height. But
It was projecting out past the building outline.
yeah, the board denied it. And they cited the fact that it would interfere with light and air. But had they not required the rear yard or lot coverage variances, they would have been allowed to go to 35 feet. So I understand how you got to make the opinions that you made, but it really isn't.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
was requested then, which resulted in the negative outcome from that appeal, isn't what was proposed in this permit application. It changed from one which projected out from the house, so outside the building outline, such that variances were necessary. And that's where that language came in that you were citing. But the current addition doesn't involve a projection past the building outline. It stays within the building outline. It doesn't require any variances. And at that point, they're fine up until the 35-foot height restriction.
So these properties all behind us, they're alley homes. I mean, they started out as 700 square foot homes. So now this property is roughly probably 1,700 square feet with the addition. They were never meant to be that large. The fact that a panel deemed it, they denied this, and I know I hate to keep going back to this, but it hasn't changed about air and natural sunlight. We have no natural sunlight coming in basically now with this erected 3rd story in our.
But again, because no variance was sought,
Right.
the addition was built as of right. So not as of right for this particular house, this particular property owner, but for any property owner.
Right, because they didn't need a variance now because it was already built, the addition on the back. Whereas before, they needed that variance And, yeah, maybe I'm just misunderstanding.
Well, okay, so in 2006, they needed a variance because they were building outside the footprint.
Right.
What they're doing now, it's not outside the footprint.
Mhm.
And under the 2009 law, they don't need to come to us for a variance. A variance isn't required. So if no variance is required, those findings aren't made because no one has to present that to us. So we don't make those light and airtight findings. They don't have to have a finding about that.
Okay.
Under the 2009 law.
Okay, well, two unresolved issues, I guess, are we were never notified, and the fact that they started work without a permit.
Well, the work without a permit and possibly even the notification issue, I believe would be building, zoning enforcement questions, or permit
Building
enforcement.
code enforcement.
Building code enforcement, rather, issues as opposed to issues for the zoning board. Just the only thing that we're focused on in this appeal is just simply whether or not the zoning administrator did something that they shouldn't have done, and issued a permit that they shouldn't have issued. If there was an issue where someone was building without a permit, that's nothing that this board has the power to do anything about. That's an issue for zoning enforcement, and I believe the same follows with the notification question.
We brought that up when we went to zoning, and we were told to appeal this as a negative appeal. Come here.
And
I think I told you, you had an uphill battle, that you had, the burden was that you had to prove that the zoning administrator made a mistake.
Well, I believe that this previous hearing was never even looked at, and it was overlooked, not, even though the law has changed in '09. I mean, it just sets a precedent, that somebody can start work without a permit, and,
Well, we're not saying that.
I mean, it kind of looks that way. Not that you're saying that, but it just kind of looks that way, that that's what's being done.
If someone works without a permit and the building inspector catches them, they fine them.
Okay, I don't believe there was a fine.
Well, it's up to them.
Correct.
But they also say you have to get a permit to do what you're doing.
Right.
And if that leads to a permit, then this board has no enforcement powers to get in, to interfere with that process. I don't know what the building inspectors did in this case.
I mean, I would think that with this previous hearing, that we would have at least been given notice to the fact that this was going to happen. It's, the devaluation of our properties, 5 properties at least, because of a $27,000 construction, third story. I mean, that's substantial in my eyes.
I guess the point where we've come to is that there are certain things that the board can and can't do, and there are certain powers the board has and doesn't have. The only thing, as I said, that we're called on to do in this appeal, and the only power that we have here, is to evaluate whether or not the zoning administrator made an error. And then you said that you were advised to come here since you were aggrieved with the decision by the zoning administrator. I think that that's the correct advice. One always has the right to seek an appeal of any decision from which they're aggrieved. That doesn't mean that the answer changes, but it means that you do have that right. You've exercised it. Here, as I said when we started, from what I understand of the facts, there was a permit request to build an addition that was within the building outline, wasn't expanding the building
to the front or the back or any of the sides. It just expanded it up, and it was within the 35-foot height restriction, as noted by Commissioner Bonaventure, that there was a change in the law in 2009 where these kinds of additions no longer had to come to the board, since it wasn't increasing a lot coverage issue, wasn't seeking a variance. The issue in the 2006 case that you've noted turned on the necessity for variances, which aren't a part of this request. And from that record, I don't see where this board could find that the zoning administrator had made an error and issued a permit that it hadn't issued. I mean, it wasn't supposed to.
So what recourse do I have from this point?
From any decision of this board, one has the right of further appeal to the Circuit Court for Baltimore City. You'd have, I believe, 30 days from the date of the decision to pursue that. And that would be sort of the next step if you were so interested. Mr. French.
Mr. Chairman, just to put this on the record, if I may, since you asked the planning department's review, this application was reviewed by a staff member of the planning department, and it was approved with a condition that a 12 by 18 foot third floor rear addition be constructed using a stucco finish for the new addition. So this did receive planning department review and approval with that condition. Thank you.
Thank you for that addition. Well, that additional information. All right. Anything further?
No.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we're off the record.
Four, is it a 3 or is it a 4?
I believe the requirement is, it's a super majority, so isn't it 2/3? So we need more than 66.66%.
How many, what's the approval?
I believe we need 3 to 1.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It might come in handy. It's 2/3.
I know, but it's like who's gonna split them, so.
Well, we're lawyers, we're good at this stuff.
Okay. Where do we want to start?
We got El Reno and Orleans.
Yes. Yeah, those are the two I have. Anyone have any others to talk about?
You're talking about the two with the 1 to 2 dogs?
Yeah.
I'm in the same place.
Okay. Were there any other cases we wanted to talk about besides this? All right. Okay. So
The one case on garage case, that was 279, I think.
well, yeah. Oh, yes, you reminded me of that.
I think it wasn't, the issue of the size of the garage being built because of the planning concerns.
Yeah. And what was the issue there, Martin? I was a little
Our
bit.
concern is, this is, as I understand it, this is sort of still in play, but the city has given bump out approval.
Yeah, I've seen these things.
For garages. Apparently, in the last few months, there's been a hardening of the position. I can't speak for any other agency, but my understanding is that there's been a general agreement reached that no more bump outs are going to be approved, which leaves these people in a very awkward position because the depth of the rear yard, according to their plan, is 15 feet. The width of the lot is 15 feet, so no matter which way they want to come in to create a parking space, unless they've got a vehicle that's less than 15 feet long, they aren't going to get it into the available rear yard, whether or not it's enclosed, whether or not it becomes a garage. So I was trying to warn them that if they're planning on building a garage out onto the sidewalk, they may run into trouble if this decision sticks. Now, they may be able to argue the hardship.
That isn't
that
seeking the minor privilege.
Given the fact that that building has a bay on the side, which obviously intrudes onto the public way, and was probably built with a payment by the builder to the city. I've seen in old records.
Actually, two bump
A one-time cash payment, which made a lot of money for the city when these things were done. But their sketch also doesn't show the depth of the bay, which is a little concerning, because if they need more than the bay currently has, they're still gonna have a problem. If the city says you can go as far out as the bay goes, but no further. So,
That's a battle they got. I mean, that's not a battle for us.
no, that's the problem.
Right.
Their problem is, even if they get your approval for this, they may still run into opposition from other city agencies that may say, no, we're not gonna let you have that.
Who grants the minor privilege? Is it ABC?
Technically,
No,
it's the Department of General Services,
General
which
Services.
it is now. But.
It used to be Public Works, but
Right.
they created General Services and separated it
The
from.
review struggle that will go on here will involve, number one, is this a posted curb cut currently? If it's not, there's gonna be an argument over a parking space on the street, lost in a parking space created privately, which won't be allowed, and so on. So I don't know the details of this one, and I don't know if they have to file a curb cut appeal as well or not, but their garage could run into problems, is what it comes down to. It's just the physical nature of the property. I mean, they're 3 feet short of what they need to be in lot width. There's nothing they can do about it.
And what my thought with it was, it's something that requires I guess it requires 2 variances for lot coverage and rear yard. Although, as I was, he was talking about something where I think he said that the city had told them that if they just wanted to enclose the parking space without using a garage, without having a garage, they just wanted to enclose it with the parking space, that they couldn't do that. The only way that they could have it enclosed would be to do it as a garage.
I don't know what the basis for that would be.
I think he was referring to the portion that's in the public right of way.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow them to build just a wall.
Maybe the same minor privilege. You come, whatever it is, you have to have the minor privilege.
Right.
The problem has been there being people who've had real parking pads without enclosure.
Yes.
Who've been on a lot like this, and then I've heard, second and third hand, that there have been enforcement officers who've gone around and tagged vehicles for parking on the sidewalk because they project out beyond the lot line.
Yeah.
And so the point of the walling was to say, okay, you've got to define your space.
Space,
You can't
sure.
just be hanging out over the public sidewalk.
I figured that this garage is approximately 300 square feet as proposed. The code allows for an accessory garage on any property up to 240 square feet. But that's accessory. If they attach it to the building, it can't be considered accessory.
Yeah.
But theoretically, they could build a 240 square foot garage unattached to the building by right. I just wanted the board to be aware of that little fact.
I recall that. I think we had it with our hearings a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
That size isn't sufficient for a car.
I know. It's antiquated language,
Yeah, smart.
They don't
Smart car, yeah.
physically.
So my concern concern with that, this case is granting a variance knowing that we've got these other issues and not complying with.
Yeah, and my issue was more just the simple variance problem, where there's no argument about uniqueness, hardship. I understand the necessity for it, where there's concern, where there's safety, there's desire for increased safety and protection by having an enclosed garage, and I get that part of it, but it's a variance request, so I didn't think that it met that standard.
I'm not sure that an enclosed garage should automatically increases safety either. Because it's kind of like building a privacy fence that if you're being attacked inside the fence, nobody outside can see you.
Sure.
So if somebody were to attack somebody inside a closed garage, nobody's going to know, potentially. Not sure that's germane, but.
No, it is. But so that was my thought on that. And then I guess the two bigger issues are El Rhino and Orleans.
David, you made a comment on El Rhino about the difference between abandoned and unoccupied. And I want to follow up with you on that one.
Well, if you have a rental
Well, yeah,
unit,
but
and it's in place, but it's between tenants or whatever, it's not
that I understand.
abandoned.
Well, and I don't think that it necessarily requires abandonment. It's discontinuance, and I think that when the code talks about discontinuance of a year or more, that's sort of where the line is between
Abandonment
and
But they had,
between discontinued and unoccupied. I think that you're given some leeway where you're between tenants that you can that period of time isn't going to be worked against you. In both cases, as it was, what my concern is that I think that the laudable nature of the improvements to both aside, and I think that those are otherwise desirable. My concern is that that you'll see other cases where people will look at that decision and say, well, you created an exception there for this property. You didn't enforce it there for this one, so why can't I do it here? And I'm just leery of creating that sort of...
Are you making a distinction between?
No, I'm saying they're the same.
For both? Okay.
The other point I was making when I said that about vacant versus unoccupied, if one of the units is occupied, they can't issue a vacant building notice to the property, because a vacant building notice means
that the building is vacant.
That the building is vacant and unfit for habitation, and they have to either board it up or bring it back into compliance.
Yes.
And if one unit is occupied and one is unoccupied, that doesn't trigger a vacant building. I do understand the fact that if one unit sits empty for a long period of time, it can be considered abandoned. So it's a fine line,
There's no mechanism at permitting to address these issues that are obviously going to just keep coming before us.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that as vacants to value continues to be continues to draw interest, that and it's a laudable program in and of itself, that you'll find more folks, or just increasing numbers, but you'll just find other people get tripped up by the same thing, where they seize on to the opportunity to buy a property at low cost, fix it up, renovate it, turn it back into marketable use, and due diligence doesn't always get done, and whether it's in with El Rhino, or where owners don't disclose all problems with properties, and that you'll see those sorts of issues creep up. So it actually creates more of a reason to be cognizant of sort of the creeping nature of creating an exception. I like that work is being done at both properties, and I think that both otherwise are desirable investments and changes to those properties. But I think that the code says that we don't have the authority to grant approvals for projects that we like. And I think it takes the discretion out of our hands. It used to be the case where the board could extend those periods for,
Additional 12 months.
and even beyond that, there wasn't a limit on it. But that was changed in certain residential districts, so we no longer have that ability. When we had that discretion, it saved projects like this. But there was a conscious decision by the council that people didn't like that sort of backdoor process. So it was taken away.
I'm bothered by the permit being issued when plans are submitted that
I am too.
clearly show multifamily, intended uses.
I am
Well,
too.
so we even commented to the degree where, occupancy wasn't.
Mhm.
So it appears.
Yes,
as
it
if
seems almost like it's an
that permits
inducement.
knew that, but didn't take it that next step to explain that.
I agree.
Yeah, I noticed, just to distinguish the two, in El Rhino, the drawings that are submitted with our package are not stamped in. They also don't clearly distinguish that it's a multifamily, it just says first floor, second floor. Whereas in the other case, the drawings are stamped in, they're logged in, and it says apartment 1 and apartment 2.
Yes.
That's,
Significant distinction.
yeah, I just,
Another interesting distinction we made is the El Rhino property is one that even the city council can't salvage, because the variance required is above the 25% limit.
Yeah.
Whereas the Rolene Street property can be salvaged by an ordinance. Now, he did make a statement that it would take 3 months more before they had it ready for reuse. And it occurred to me that we needed advice to go to the councilman immediately and get this conversion ordinance bill introduced. And by the time that's run its course, he might have to wait another month beyond his target date of 3 months, but he might have it ready in time. We could salvage that by ordinance process.
district is that? Is that Branch?
Branches district. So, there is some difference here. The other folks, though, yeah, they're in deep water, in a sense, because of the fact that that lot is so small that they cannot get a variance approved, whether by this board or by the city council, to authorize 2-unit conversion. So if they've lost it, they've lost it for good, until the next code takes effect and maybe the rules change.
They're not gonna change. They're not gonna make it easier.
That's the council's decision to make. And they're still working on it.
Okay, we ready to vote? Okay. 2013-330, 1522 through 24 Eastern Avenue, 1526 Eastern Avenue, 1528 through 30 Eastern Avenue, and 1532 Eastern Avenue. I am a yes with the conditions stated by the planning department.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
2014-106, 446 El Rano Street. I'm a no.
No.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. We're, because we can't vote? I just want to I don't understand, we can vote, we have to vote no.
Yes.
Right. So, but we can vote, it's not that we don't have the ability to speak into it.
That's correct. My vote is because I don't believe that we have the authority.
Okay, gotcha. No. Just want to understand.
2014-277, 1510 and 1512 North Broadway was by consent. Were there conditions on that one, Mark?
That they meet with the Oliver.
Oh, that's
community.
right. That's right. 2014-279, 2600 East Baltimore Street. I'm a no.
I'm a yes.
I'm a yes. Let's go up the chain.
No to that one.
2014-280, 1610 Clarkson Street. I'm a yes.
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 2014-281, 1001 South Carey Street was a no-show. We've had no contact with him? There's no call or?
Not to my knowledge. I'll be happy to give him a call and find out what's going on.
Why should you?
Yeah, you gotta refile it.
Are we treating it as a dismiss?
That's what
It wasn't posted?
There was challenge from the community.
Oh, never mind. Maybe he gave up on it.
I see, yeah, be dismissed. 2014-282, East Side, North Calvert Street, 47 feet south of Federal Street, was by consent with conditions stated by the planning department. And now he said that the issues outlined in the letter were really conditions. They were things that they were willing to work with the community on. As they
Things like lighting and.
Oh, that's because they didn't have really a. Because there were some parts of their plan that really hadn't.
Yeah, the one that I thought was interesting, that they do a drop-off and pick-up location on Calvert Street. But.
Okay, I'll leave it to you to figure out how to word that. 2014-283, 2125 Orleans Street, I'm a no.
No.
2000.
Yes on that one, just troubled by the permit issue.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
2014-284, 605 Park Avenue was by consent. 2014, and there were conditions with that one too, right?
Yeah.
2014-285, 6317 through 19 Valera Road was postponed. 2014-286, 6321 through 25 Valera Road was postponed. 2014-289, 3622 Cairns Lane. I'm a yes with conditions stated by the planning department.
Yes.
2014-290, 1300 North Caroline Street. I'm a yes with the condition that the applicant meet with the community association.
Yes.
2014-291, 821 through 23 East Fort Avenue was postponed. 2014-292, 1272 James Street was withdrawn. 2014-293, 646 Newkirk Street was postponed. 2014-294, 412 East Patapsco Avenue was by consent. 2014-295, 1708 through 10 Fleet Street was by consent with conditions stated by the planning department. 2014-297, 2008 South Pulaski Street was a no-show. 2014-311, 6300 Park Heights Avenue was postponed. 2014-313, 2050 Rock Rose Avenue was by consent with conditions agreed to with the Community Association.
Did you guys have conditions with that too, Martin? No, okay, didn't think so. And 2014-278, negative appeal, 3409 Harmony Court. I am a no as to the negative appeal.
No.
Yes.